Afternoon. Steering me workshops, giving a good clear out. It's not been touched for a while. Just a thought came to mind, as they do as you're busy. A question I got asked quite a few times is, what's it like to be a full-time carer for your partner? Well, there's no simple answer to that one. I can only speak in my case. So I met my wife back in 1997, got married in 1999. Now my wife, when I met her, that she was disabled. She was diagnosed with JRE, which is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. She was actually born with it, but she was officially diagnosed at 3. So, when I got together, we met on a blind date, and she told me straight up front, but I didn't care. It were a personality that drew me to her, and we pretty much spent every day with each other since our very first date. So, we got married, we bought his own house, we had 2 children, we were all grown up. Things were great for a while. I worked, and Sarah managed to cope and do things, but with the progression of the disease, obviously as time goes on, things get a little bit harder. Now, it's always in the back of your mind, especially if you meet someone, knowing they have a condition that could potentially progressively get worse. But back then, when you're younger, you don't care. It's a million miles away. So anyway, we had a good run for a long time. I worked full time, and my wife was a full-time mother, housewife. But it started to become clear as the years went on that she was starting to really struggle, and it was getting clearer and clearer that maybe I'm going to have to become a full-time carer. We kind of talked about it in passing and things like that, but we never really set anything in stone. Until she had to have both her ankles replaced. Now, they initially wanted to do full ankle replacements with joints, which they did, but they were both unsuccessful. In fact, she had to have 3 of these operations because one was a complete failure from the beginning. So she managed to struggle on for a while on these artificial ankles, and the damage that JRE does to your joints and everything, she's affected in almost every single joint in her body, and it was becoming harder and harder for her to do things. So she then started feeling guilty, that I'd come home from work and she'd not done as much tidying and cleaning and all that stuff. But I understood to the best of my ability, but it did used to get frustrating sometimes, and it just started to become a bit too much and a bit too obvious that something we're going to have to change. Now, I'm an engineer by trade. I've always been an engineer in one form or another, and I was working pretty much a very, very, very enjoyable job. I loved it. I worked in the mobility industry. I used to work on specialist power chairs and mobility scooters and all that stuff. I was a good top engineer at the company I was with. And I'd worked a lot of jobs over the years that were pretty terrible. You do when you're younger and you just want to get a house, you want to pay a mortgage and stuff. But I finally got to a position of where I was exceptionally good at my job. I had a really good reputation, and every day was a different challenge. But it is what it is. So it started coming clear that after the ankle replacement failures, that the only option left was to have complete fusions of both her ankles, where they were going to put take her ankle joints out completely, put some titanium rods through her feet, take some bone grafts, and just basically she'll have a solid ankle joint that'll just never move, so they have to fuse it in one position. They can only do one at a time, because obviously if there's a problem, they don't want to do them both. So we had to make the decision of what was going to happen, and I made the decision. It was me based, and I knew it was coming, and I basically, well, I'm going to have to take up the slack. and become your full-time carer. Now initially we thought it may just be temporary, maybe 2 or 3 years or something like that, because of the first operation. Then she'd have to have rehab, and everything had to set, and then they would book in again, and it takes a long time, especially on the NHS, to get any procedure done really. So I allotted myself about 2 or 3 years where I'd, in the hopes of going back to work. So I did. I left my job and became a full-time carer. Now, I remember when I was getting ready to on my last days at the company I was with, and I had some comments. Oh God, I can't believe how lucky you are. You're gonna have no boss, and you can go to bed when you want, or you can get up when you want, and all that stuff. Well, I'll tell you straight away, the novelty of that wears off very fast. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the novelty of that is completely worn away. It's a lot of work. Now, it's very difficult to explain for someone who's never experienced it. I suppose it can be different for every single person, depending on what the condition is of the person looking after. Sorry, but it does become more than a full-time job. It's a 24/7 job. You literally are on call 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. When I say on call, I don't mean that it's sort of like when the needs to be met have got to be there all the time. So if I was just nipping out somewhere, I'd always have my phone on in case she dropped something, or she had a fall, or she needed something, all the things like that, helping to get dressed and doing her hair, helping to get her showers and baths and things like that. But it used to get me down a little bit in the beginning days, because I'd worked every single day of my life since I was 16 years old when I left school, and then to go in to a complete kind of isolated environment, and you pretty much spend most of your time at home. And I did used to try, we used to go out, I'd take her out in the car somewhere, and we'd go to some nice places and things like that. It weren't all doom and gloom, but it takes a lot of adjusting, a hell of a lot of adjusting. And then the 2 years came, and then the third year came, and unfortunately, with the condition that she has, other problems arise that you don't account for, and more operations, and then the amount of medication that she has to take, that causes another effect, and then you're treating one problem, which creates another problem, and then you try to solve that problem, then creates another problem, and it just ended up being years upon years of that really. Now, the thing about being a carer is, you do get a lot of time to yourself, but that isn't a good thing, especially if you're someone like me who's got to be active. And I had my workshop, which I've got here, and things like that, and I was trying to keep myself busy, but it's not the same as when you're working. It kind of feels like you don't have a purpose in life anymore. And I don't mean that in a derogatory, because obviously my purpose in life is my wife and my kids, but it's a different kind of purpose. It's what am I doing with the rest of my life type of thing, and that's the hardest thing to get around. I think that a lot of people who are getting in, are maybe considering being a full-time carer, or changing position, changing the jobs, and having to look after the partner for whatever reason. There's a million different reasons out there why people become carers and things, but it's something you've got to. This is how I did it, right? We've had ups and downs, and I've had a lot of downs the last few years. There's been a lot of problems and stuff, but you'll notice that in my previous videos that I've talked about. But at the end of the day, the decision that I made is, when we got married, we take a vow, and that vow is in sickness and in health. And I take that very, very seriously. And I would hope that if the situation was reversed, that you know, my wife would do that, and I believe that she would. So I just brought it down to the very basics. Just honour my vows, and that's all we can do in life. And you do what you can. It's not easy. You make life as comfortable as possible for the person you're caring for, and you do the best for yourself when you can. And like I say, I'm lucky. I've got a nice workshop and a decent sized garden that I can keep myself busy and entertained, especially in the summer months. In winter, yeah, on one of my future videos, I'm building a new woodworking shop with a nice log burn up there. So when it's winter, I've got time and places to go. It's a little bit more limiting in the winter time. So whether this video has answered your question or not, it just comes down to it's a personal choice. Is it worth it? Of course it is. It's your partner, it's your life partner, she's the mother of your children, and you know, we all want to be happy. So I'll leave you with that one. Like I say, just a thought that randomly popped into my head, so I thought I'd make this quick, easy video really to keep going while I'm editing other videos. So like and subscribe on my channel. There's lots of different things coming up, and have a good one.